What if I told you that you can get a legacy experience in just 18 cards? Hey everybody, Jared from Board Game Apprentice here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Wildtails: A Pirate Legacy from Buttonshy Games. When I read about this, it sounds a little ridiculous, a little silly, I'm going to be honest. But after having a chance to play through it, I'm actually very pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed my time with Wildtails. Let me show you what's inside this little 18 card package, as well as a general overview of how the game plays, and then I'll let you know what I think about this ambitious little game. Okay, so you might be wondering what's actually in this game that makes it possible to be a legacy game. And so when you open it up, you're going to have the familiar Buttonshy game holder. You're going to have your 18 cards that are going to be actually used to play the game. You're going to have two rule books, one that gives you a general overview of the game, one that goes into more detail. And finally, you're going to have the actual legacy components, which are a couple different sticker sheets, a couple different cards that you'll add and modify throughout the game. Nothing is destructive, so at the end of this, you'll have a fully replayable game that you can do in kind of free scenario mode once you're done with the campaign. The other thing that I was scratching my head about is how are they actually going to keep a storybook or a campaign log in the game? And so the way they get around that is actually hosting it on a web page here. And so on one of those rule books, you have a QR code that will take you to this website. And it's pretty bare bones, but it gets the job done very well. It has some campaign rules to tell you how to actually progress through the campaign and some of those different things. There is a little nice errata section, so there was one little error I noticed, but they have addressed it, which is great. And then once you're actually ready, you just start the campaign. It's pretty straightforward. It has a nice prologue here. The story is, pretty good, I think, for a little 18 card game. It kept me pretty engaged. I like the War of 1812 setting, which is very cool. And then you just press start campaign. And then again, this is just showing the prologue, which is really nothing spoilery here. It'll tell you what you unlock and then any new cards you get. And then you're ready to start chapter 1. And then it'll walk you through the setup. And then once you're done, you hit victory or defeat. And it will tell you what happens when those, whether you win or lose. Then you can go ahead and just hit, the subsequent chapters. There's really no, the web page doesn't actually log anything or kind of remember anything. It is just a way to kind of help guide you with setup and then let you know what you unlock after completing one of those. So again, this is not like app driven in any way. It's very straightforward, but it's a nice way to have a campaign without having to shove, I guess they could put a really small storybook in this paid in the wallet game, but I'm glad they went the website route since it's really unintrusive and it's a nice way to present it. All right, so here we are with what a regular scenario of Wildtails is going to look like. This is set up for the very first scenario, and I've covered up all the spoilery things, so no worries about that. I just want to give you a general high-level overview of what the flow of the game is actually going to look like. So up here in the top left, we have our threat card, which is what we're eventually hoping to defeat to complete the scenario. On the top left here, you're going to have objective cards. And those objectives are what you're going to need to accomplish in order to actually be able to defeat the threat card. Down here, we have our two characters. We have Anna and Samuel, which are your two beginner characters. On the other side, there are two other characters that you'll unlock as the game progresses. Also in the center, you have your pirate stronghold, which is going to be a place where you have some additional abilities that you can spend resources for, or you can store cards there to trade them in between characters, since one character might need a resource a little bit more than another. But the deck of most interest, or the card of most interest, is going to be these scene cards. Since these scene cards are what you're going to be interacting with to actually gain resources which you need to eventually complete the game. So here you could see that every scene card is going to have 4 different events that you can choose to do. The top one is always going to give you a resource just for doing it. The middle 2 you'll have to spend to get something, and the bottom one is going to be a skill check, which we'll get into in a few moments. But depending on which one you choose to do, you'll take the corresponding resource, depending on which side of the card it is, 1 through 4, and sliding that right underneath your character. So for example, if Anna gets it, she'll take that, slide it under her character, and that's going to show that you have that resource available to spend as the game progresses. Play would then go to Samuel, who could choose to interact with a scene card, discard it, which is useful if you think that your partner is going to want it, or they can choose to spend resources to claim one of these cards, or use one of their abilities. Or finally, they can fight the threat. but we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about skill checks. So the reason you're collecting resources is that each of these different objectives is going to have a cost. The first time you buy it, you get this kind of first reward up to the fourth one. But to actually have a chance to defeat the threat, both characters have to have their objectives completed to level 4. And so rushing to get those objectives complete is going to be your ultimate goal of the game. Play is going to go back and forth between players who will either claim these resources, these scene cards, choose to discard them, or just keep going back and forth. Eventually this scene deck is going to be depleted, and that's going to be the trigger for the end of the round. And so up here there's this little player reference card that also serves as the round tracker. So you would slide it up to number 2, and that would tell you that you're entering the second round of play. The first thing you do is shuffle all the scene cards back together. And what you'll notice is that if characters are hoarding a lot of resources, you are making that scene card much thinner, meaning that you're going to finish it quicker, and that means rounds are going to progress quicker. And you want to avoid that because if you reach round 7 and you have not defeated the threat, you fail. But the other thing you're going to do when a new round begins is that the threat is actually going to capture one of the scene cards. And what that means is that it is going to tuck it behind it, and so that scene is no longer accessible to you or your partner. Again, making it much harder, making the scene deck go by faster, progressing rounds faster. The other way you can fail is that if this threat card is able to capture 5 scenes, you fail automatically. The other interesting thing that's going to be happening as you progress rounds is that there's going to be this little crisis tracker. So you can see there's a different icon in between each round, and on the threat card, this will line up with a certain symbol. So for example, here in round 2, the hook symbol would go off whenever a scene card with the purple icon shows up. And the hook icon, discard bottom card of the scene deck. Again, a common theme you're going to see is that any way that you're forced to deplete the scene deck is going to be bad. And so whenever you resolve, or reveal rather, so let's say, for example, you decide to claim this one, and then as soon as you resolve a purple icon here, which is up on the top right corner, you'll activate that hook effect and be forced to discard a card from the bottom of the scene deck, which is bad. There are ways to mitigate that. There are different future abilities where you can choose to negate those, or different ways to manipulate it. But in general, those crises, you're going to reveal every time you see a card with the matching symbol, regardless of the round, once you reach the round where that is actually revealed. And so that's another kind of stressor as the game progresses, and it's going to make it much tougher. You're going to be collecting these resources, spending them, or doing skill checks, and then getting these objective cards, which is going to slide underneath your character. And it's kind of similar to the other one, the round threat tracker. Characters will get different bonuses depending on their objective level. So you get a free fist stat, 2 free of the deceptive stat, a free barrel resource, and finally the level 4 one is going to cut the difficulty of the threat in half, making it much easier to actually finish the scenario, which is nice. So the last thing I didn't touch on was fighting the threat and skill checks, which is going to be kind of commonly used in resolving scenes and fighting, of course. So why would you actually want to bother fighting it? Like I said before, you can only actually defeat the threat when you have both objectives completed, then you fight it, and if you win the scenario. But also, like I mentioned, if they capture 5 cards, you automatically fail, which is bad. And so to actually free those captured cards, you're going to want to fight them. And so a skill check in this game is done pretty simply, and you're going to look at whatever the skill being called for is. In this case, it's Deception with 5. And then for every captured card, that adds 1 difficulty to the skill check. So you really don't want them to run away with 3 or 4 captured cards, because then that threshold is going to be pushed up to 9, which is going to be difficult unless you want to buff, different ways to buff yourself. But again, you're spending more time and resources just to free up those captured cards when you could have maybe got them free earlier. But that's part of the puzzle of the game, is knowing when to fight, when to just let them go, when you think you can push for an objective. That little puzzle is really neat. But let's say, for example, you wanted to do that test. So what you need to do is beat a deception of level 6, and Anna here has a level 4. So what you're gonna do is look at the scene deck. The top card isn't what you're gonna care about, but you're actually gonna reveal the card under it. So you slide it down ever so slightly. First thing you're gonna look at is the icon. If the two icons match, you automatically fail. The second thing you're gonna do is look at the number on the revealed card. That is what you're gonna add to your existing skill value to see if you pass or not, which is essentially a skill modifier. So in this case, we revealed a 2. So we're gonna look at our skill, which is 4, add 2 to it for 6, and then compare it to the threat, which is also a 6. Passes are victories, and so you remove this card from underneath threat and put it in the discard. You also discard the top scene, regardless if you passed or failed the skill check. So you are still paying. The scene card is really what is going to be keeping you on track and keeping track of your actions as you progress. Pretty much everything you do is going to consume a scene card, forcing things to be pushed forward. So those skill checks are going to be done for fighting, and as well as the 4th action on all the scene cards, you're able to do a skill check. So that's kind of the general flow of play. You're going to be going through the scene cards, resolving different events 1 through 4, choosing to fight, or choosing to claim and spend resources on objectives. There are also a number of different abilities you'll unlock throughout the game that you can also choose to spend resources on. And I really do love it, pretty simple. The first scenario is going to feel pretty straightforward, but as you start to get more complicated with the threats, with the crisis that you're going to face, as well as the character and stronghold options you have, there really is quite a bit of depth that is hidden in this just kind of 18 card game. So hopefully that is helpful to give you a general idea of how it plays. So in my mind, there's 3 things that a legacy game has to do to be considered successful. Number 1, the actual gameplay has to be fun. Are you enjoying each campaign and scenario you're playing getting towards the end? Number 2, the choices that are legacy should feel impactful to the game. Why are you going through the process of putting those stickers on and changing the game when possibly a designer could have given you a optimized way to play it? And number 3, I think you should be left with a game that you want to revisit and replay, either through kind of scenarios that are randomized or getting a recharge pack to kind of reset it and play through it again. And I'm very happy to say I think that Wildtails really is successful in all 3 of those categories. I think the core backbone of the game, of that scene management, resource management, kind of skill check type thing, is really strong. And if nothing else, I'm really excited to see what Buttonshy does if this is successful. I think that Wildtail system can be customized and changed for a lot of interesting settings. The kind of pirate smuggling, sharing resources between characters is really fun and engaging. I think that playing this solo or co-op is both really fun to do, especially if you're talking with the person. Ooh, should we use this? Should I save this? Do you want me to smuggle that for you? I think that the pirate setting it comes through pretty strongly with the way that you manage these resources. And I absolutely love the 4 options and the kind of thematic ties to the art that are on those scene cards. I think the gameplay is a major, major win in Wildtails. The second thing, do the legacy options and choices you make feel impactful? Do I feel like I'm connecting with this game and making it my own by the end of it? And I think that also comes through really strongly. The primary way you're doing this is going to be choosing different skills that your characters are going to be unlocking. So it kind of feels like that pirate crew, as you unlock more crewmates, is becoming your own. And I think that comes through really strongly. My Anna and your Samuel are going to be different than anyone else's that plays it. And I think that's really impactful in a legacy game. I think that's kind of what I search most for when playing a legacy game is this going to feel like my own? And I think by the end of it, it really does. I do wish that there was a little bit more customization as far as their kind of stronghold and pirate ship. I think that those are a little bit lacking, but again, I see the potential in this, and I feel like there's so much that you can do with this Wildtail system, which I hope they do. And number 3, does the game, after you're done, do you want to revisit it? Do you want to keep playing it? And I think I really do. Like I mentioned with the legacy aspects, I feel like I really put a lot of work into making these characters my own, and I want to go back and make scenarios and replay them. Everything is fully replayable. You don't need to reset the game. So once you're done with it, you're you're left with a game that's even more fulfilling than the game you started with. And I like that it never feels too overwhelming. You haven't added so much to the game by the end of it that I don't feel like I can take someone who's never played Wildtails and show it to them. I'm even more excited to bring this out and teach it to someone because I think it is fairly simple to teach and show them that, hey, this is my game, these are my characters that I customized. And I think that's really cool. So overall, I think that Wildtails is a major win for Buttonshy. I think that they are really pushing the envelope on what you can do with 18 cards and a few sticker sheets. And I think that using that webpage to host a little campaign booklet is really genius. It's not, it's not app-driven in any way. It's just a way to kind of tell you the story and guide you towards how to apply some of those customization options. And I think it's a really nifty, clever way to do that and still stick with the kind of small wallet scale of the game. And again, I'm so excited to see if they do this Wildtails kind of anthropomorphic animal retelling of historical events. I like the War of 1812 setting. I don't want to talk too much about the story, for spoilers' sake if you're going to play it, but being a pirate in the War of 1812, being kind of in between the American and British forces in this like fake New Orleans is really cool. I really love the setting and story of this game. And honestly, for such a small game, it even had those like, oh my gosh, or like those twists that you kind of want from a legacy game where it feels like a dynamic story. And I just really enjoyed it. So overall, I'm going to say that Wildtails is a major recommendation if you're looking for a legacy game. If you're looking for something that is kind of small table space and portable, I don't think you can go wrong with Wildtails. I think it's just super good, and hopefully you guys get a chance to play it and make your own pirate legacy here. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you out on the 7 seas. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing for more videos like this. I also have a Twitter and Instagram where I post thoughts and photos of games I'm playing throughout the week, and I hope to see you there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.